5 people, one stretch of wilderness, 5 years. None of them were ever found. None of them were ever explained. Somewhere in the mountains of Vermont, there's a place locals still won't hike alone after dark. Welcome to American Rumor. This is the Bennington Triangle. Southwestern Vermont looks like the kind of place nothing bad should happen. Rolling green mountains, quiet little towns, thick maple forests that turn gold every fall. But tucked inside that postcard scenery is a 100-square-mile stretch of wilderness centered on Glastenbury Mountain. And locals have a name for it, the Bennington Triangle. The name wasn't coined until 1992 by a Vermont folklorist digging through decades of strange local history. But the events that earned it that name happened decades earlier, between 1945 and 1950, when this quiet patch of forest swallowed people whole. Glastenbury itself used to be a logging town. By the late 1930s, it was empty, officially unincorporated, reclaimed by trees. A ghost town in the most literal sense. And it's here, in these woods, that the disappearances began. The first case isn't always counted among the 5, because this is the one time a body was actually found. Carl Herrick was hunting with his cousin Henry, about 10 miles northeast of Glastenbury Mountain. The two men split up. Henry never saw him alive again. 3 days later, searchers found Carl's body. His ribs were crushed inward, the kind of injury you'd expect from being squeezed, not from any weapon. His rifle lay beside him, untouched. Not a single round had been fired. There were large animal prints near the body. Investigators floated the idea of a bear attack, but experts at the time said a bear doesn't kill like this. A bear doesn't squeeze. No answer was ever confirmed. And 2 years later, the woods took someone else, this time without leaving a body at all. Mitty Rivers was 74 years old, and he knew these mountains better than almost anyone alive. A lifelong hunting guide, born and raised in the area. On November 12th, he was leading a party of hunters through a stretch of forest called Hell Hollow. At some point, Rivers moved a few steps ahead of the group, close enough to see, close enough to call out to. Then he wasn't there anymore. The hunters searched the immediate area and found nothing. Within days, more than 300 volunteers and soldiers from a nearby army base joined the search, combing the forest for over a week. They found one thing, a single rifle cartridge that had belonged to Rivers. No footprints leading away, no signs of a struggle, no trace of a man who had walked those woods his entire life. 1 year and 19 days later, the Bennington Triangle claimed the case that would make it infamous. Paula Weldon was 18 years old, a sophomore at Bennington College. On the afternoon of December 1st, she decided to take a hike along the long trail near Glastenbury Mountain. She left in a hurry, light jacket, sneakers, no supplies for an overnight trip. She was easy to spot. Her jacket was bright red. Multiple people saw her that day. A driver gave her a lift to the trailhead. A local employee gave her directions. A couple walking the same trail watched her from about 100 yards behind. They saw her turn a bend in the path. When they reached that same bend moments later, she was simply gone. Paula never returned to campus. By the next day, alarm had turned into a full-scale search. Over 1,000 volunteers, aircraft, bloodhounds, a $5,000 reward. It became one of the largest manhunts in Vermont's history. They found nothing. Not her jacket, not a footprint, not a single clue. Her disappearance was so widely publicized that it directly led to the creation of the Vermont State Police, a law enforcement gap the case had exposed, but it never led to an answer. 3 years later, the pattern took an even stranger shape. James Tedford was riding a bus back toward the Bennington area, an ordinary trip, ordinary passengers, on a route he'd taken before. Witnesses confirmed he boarded. Witnesses confirmed he was seated on the bus. At some point during that ride, he vanished. His luggage was still in the overhead rack when the bus arrived. His seat was empty. Nobody saw him get off. Nobody saw him get up. A man disappeared from inside a moving vehicle, surrounded by other passengers. And to this day, no one has ever explained how. The final chapter came in 1950 with 2 more disappearances in the same short stretch of time. Paul Jepson was just 8 years old, last seen playing near a pig farm truck close to the Glastenbury woods. He vanished within a matter of hours, in an area his family thought was safe. Then, later that same year, Frida Langer went missing while hiking with a group near the Somerset Reservoir, not far from Glastenbury. She'd slipped and fallen into a stream, told her cousin she'd catch up after changing clothes back at the car. She never caught up. Frida's case is the only one of the later disappearances where a body was eventually recovered, found months later in an area that searchers said they'd already combed multiple times. The condition of the remains made a cause of death impossible to determine. 5 years, 5 people, 1 small stretch of Vermont wilderness, and after 1950, it simply stopped. So what actually happened on Glastenbury Mountain? Theory 1. The terrain itself. This is rugged, disorienting wilderness, steep ravines, old mining shafts, sudden weather changes. It's a reasonable explanation for 1 or 2 of these cases. It doesn't explain all 5. Theory 2. Human foul play. Some researchers believe a single person, or even a serial predator, may have used the isolation of Glastenbury to their advantage across these years. But no suspect was ever named, and the range of victims doesn't fit a single, simple pattern. Theory 3. The paranormal. Long before 1945, Glastenbury already had a reputation. Local indigenous folklore describes the mountain as cursed. Reports of a large, hairy, humanoid creature roaming these woods go back to the early 1800s, predating any of these disappearances by more than a century. Theory 4. The town itself. Some point to Glastonbury's own history, a boomtown that failed, officially dissolved by the state, left to rot. Whether that's superstition or something else, the disappearances all happened within a few miles of a town that, on paper, doesn't exist anymore. No theory explains all 5 cases. No investigation ever closed any of them. 5 people walked into those woods. None of them walked back out, and nothing they left behind ever explained why. Today, the trails are still there. Hikers still pass through. And locals will tell you, the forest gets quiet in a way that doesn't feel natural, right around where Glastenbury used to stand. So I'll leave it to you. What do you think really happened in the Bennington Triangle? A killer who was never caught? A mountain that's genuinely cursed? Or just wilderness doing what wilderness does? Let me know in the comments. I read every one of them. This has been American Rumor. Every town has a rumor, every rumor has a record, and every record has a reckoning. I'll see you in the next one.